Hey shooters, today we're going to talk about powder charging.
3, 2, 1, time.
Well, it's been a while since I did my last video, which was on priming brass. I had meant to just roll right into the next parts of charging brass and seating and everything else. However, it was about that time I was about to receive a new powder charger, which was the SuperTrickler here. And I wanted to make sure that I ran it through its paces a little bit and was able to give you my opinion on it and whether it was something that you should use or not. I've been using it for the last, it looks like about 6 months or so. I'm going to go through the pros and cons of it and compare it to the AutoTrickler that I have here, as well as some of the earlier systems that I had. So like a lot of people, I started off with a balance beam, and you could pour a little charge in there, even have a little manual trickler and get it right up to the line. You were good to go. A little while later, I upgraded to a Charge Master, the RCBS Charge Master, and used that for a while. I thought it was doing great, didn't have any problems with it. And then a friend of mine got an A&D scale, this FX120i. And he said, you know what, if you think your Charge Master's good, let's run a test. And so I threw 10 throws of 30 grains of Varget into little containers, and then we took each of those to his A&D FX120i and weighed them out to see how close they were. It was surprising how far off it was, and even though the Charge Master was saying that it was right on, this finer scale was saying that it wasn't. I have a lot of confidence in this scale. I think the FX120i is a very good scale. It's interesting that my father is a organic chemist, or he was. He's retired now. He was an organic chemist. He was the chief chemist at the West Point Chemistry Lab, the U.S. Military Academy. And so he ran the lab there. And he had lots of high-end equipment and things like that. And one day he walked into my reloading room and saw this scale and said, "You're using that for measuring powder?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a really good scale." And he said, "Yeah, I know it's a really good scale. That's the kind of stuff that we use in the chemistry lab for very fine experimentation." So he thought it was a little overkill for what I was doing, but that just goes to show that it is a very good scale. I actually started off with just a scale, and I was taking a little dipper, putting it in there, seeing what it would get, and hand trickling it in until the A&D said I had my charge. It was a little slow. It still probably was a little faster than using the beam scale though, and it was accurate. Eventually, I did buy the AutoTrickler system. Matter of fact, I bought the Auto Throw and the AutoTrickler together, and it was a lot better. This was actually the V2 version, and I bought, not long after that, a bunch of the Area 419 upgrades. So instead of the 3D printed parts, it would get the aluminum billet parts that Area 419 was making. Not long after that, the V3 came out, and I was actually able to upgrade my V2 mostly to a V3 with a new board in the back, which gave it Bluetooth capability, which now allowed me to use an app on my phone to punch in the weight. Prior to that, I had to have a a little container that had exactly what charge I wanted on it. I would put it on there, and when it was exact, you would tell it, okay, remember that, that's what I want you to throw. And so it was a little more tedious to do that. Being able to just punch in the number was a whole lot nicer. You know, I think it's a good system. I think it has its flaws, but we'll go over that. Like I said, about 6 months ago, I finally got my SuperTrickler. I was very early number on it, and I was really impressed with the work that had gone into developing it. And so I finally got it sent to me from Europe, and went through all the work to get it to work with the A&D, and started using it and playing with it and figuring it out. And after all this time, I have my opinions about it. And so let me tell you about some of the pros and cons of the SuperTrickler. All right, so the pros of the SuperTrickler. Number one thing, it zeroes every time you put the cup on the platen. I love that. It's one of the best features of the SuperTrickler. Sometimes I wonder with the AutoTrickler whether it is actually on zero when I put the cup back. It might say, you know, -0.02 or something like that. And then it starts anyway, and I don't really know, is that because it zeroed or because it's close enough and it just ran anyway. So I love the fact it zeroes every time. It's all this one piece of self-contained system. It is not, you know, a separate piece here with the trickler here and wires coming out the back and you know, a lid that has to go on. It's just nice and self-contained, and I really like that. Being contained, it also has a block for any of the powder that bounces out and lands on the tray. Well, if it lands on this tray, it might actually be counted towards you know, the weight. All right, third thing that I absolutely love about the SuperTrickler is the touchscreen. Touchscreen makes it so easy to set things up and change things out, as opposed to having to use the app. It's just another step where you have to go in and make sure the app is connected and then use it. What you can do on the app is very limited, mostly putting in exactly what kind of charge you have, and that's about it. Where there are additional steps that you can do on the SuperTrickler's touchscreen. So I like that a lot. Along with that, the electronics of it, I love the lights and the sounds of the SuperTrickler. It lights up green when your charge is ready to go. It lights up red if it is an overthrow. And that's really convenient. There is a little beeping sound as well, so I like that a lot. I know the newer V4 version of the AutoTrickler has some lights and such, but I'm mostly just talking about this V2/3 version and how it compares to the SuperTrickler. So I like the lights and sounds. There's a setting on here for doing ladder tests. I like that a lot. Where if I do a ladder test with this, I have to have the app open and manually change it every once in a while. This also has a powder database. It actually has a small database that remembers you know, the different powders that you have in it and how to run it. The best settings in order to run each of those powders. Very cool system. This is a much dumber system. It is just going to run until it's at the right charge, and then it's going to stop. So it is a much simpler system. And the SuperTrickler, the firmware is constantly being updated. They're trying new things. They are actively working on it all the time. Obviously, this is an older version of the AutoTrickler, so they're not working on this anymore. And they've moved on to the V4 system, which is a totally new system, and I understand that. But it is, from many people that I've talked to, it is not necessarily the best upgrade to go from a V2/3 to a V4. So I have stuck with that and wanted to try the AutoTrickler. So now we can talk about the cons. All right, so the cons of the SuperTrickler so far. It is difficult to know how much powder you have currently in it. And you actually have to look down in it, and you still can't necessarily see it all. That's not the best system. I wish you had some kind of window showing you some kind of volumetric reading on the side to know how much you have. On top of that, it really seems to work better when you have a lot of powder in it. So you're better off keeping it filled. It just seems to work better. This, obviously, you know exactly how much powder is in it, and you have an open top here so you can see how much is in it as well. Emptying out the powder. Okay, so the AutoTrickler is not great. Once this is done, you can kind of pick up the whole system and dump it out. Same with this. It works okay. This one has the levers on the bottom that you can turn, but it really works best if you have a special funnel, and there are some cool 3D things that you can print. I made some of these, or I printed these that someone else designed, and they have some special emptying containers that have a built-in funnel and looks good, but it really should have come standard with the SuperTrickler already. And then, you know, to get back to the SuperTrickler's issues, it takes a lot of tinkering. There are a lot of options between the bulk tube and the fine tune tube and the little extra fine vibrations at the end, and there are almost too many ways to change the way this operates. Now, it's supposed to have AI built in, and it's supposed to learn which one's working best. I've heard people have had very good luck with it. I have not. It's almost like when you're trying to figure out a problem with, well, any problem. If you have too many variables, you don't know which one is causing the issue. You really have to isolate each variable to see which one's causing it. And I feel like it's very difficult to do that with the SuperTrickler. Is whenever you're using the cup and you're putting it here, you get your powder dispensed and it's just perfect. And as you pull it out, there's a tendency to bump the little tube above it. And you don't know at that point if a little bit of powder is spilled into it or not. And it makes it very frustrating because you kind of just see something move and then you put it back on and you got to check, oh, did the volume change on it? And sometimes it does, sometimes it didn't. And then you're like, wow, did I miss that on other ones where I didn't see anything? Maybe I bumped it and a kernel or two fell in and I missed that. And so I feel like it's got some possible inconsistencies that could be built into it. And the number one issue I have with the SuperTrickler, and I'll let you know right now, it's the reason I'm not using the SuperTrickler. Varget. Varget seems to be the SuperTrickler kryptonite. I know Varget's a big powder. It has some major issues with using Varget. I cannot get it to work consistently with Varget. I've tried other powders I have, and they've done great. They seem to do fairly well, very consistent. But Varget's my match powder. Varget's what I use for the majority of my finer reloading. And if it can't work with Varget, it's not going to have a place on my reloading desk. And so that is why I have gone away from the SuperTrickler. I believe it's actually a flaw of the SuperTrickler system. You know, these kind of tricklers have the screw concept with you know, the powder being able to ride in the threads. And some other systems have the little discs that kind of pick up a kernel of powder at a time and throw them in. This one just seems to be a little vibration tube. And because the Varget is somewhat large size, it tends to not do anything, not do anything, not do anything. Oh, here's a whole bunch of it, no matter what setting you have it on. I have some friends of mine who have said that they have gotten it to work with Varget. Eric Allred at Cool Acres said he has not had the problems that I have had. He has been able to tweak it down and make it work. I have not. And I just don't have the time to put into trying to tinker that much with it, especially when this system still works. And not only does this system work, I have an improved version of this system, which I will show you next. The best system I have found so far to use for loading my match rounds has been the combination of the AutoTrickler, really the auto throw system, with the Ingenuity Precision Trickler. Now this trickler plugs right into the AutoTrickler's system. It is using the same cord and going into the same computer card in the back of the A&D. But instead of turning the AutoTrickler's trickler, it's turning the Ingenuity Precision one. Matter of fact, it is controlled by the little motor right here, which was taken out of the other one and put onto this one. I actually got this right before, maybe 6 months before I got the SuperTrickler. And it was working really well. And I started doubting whether I should have ordered the SuperTrickler. Maybe I was right. It is a great system. You pour the powder directly in here, and this, the inside of this spins. You might be able to hear that. And inside there is a disc. I'll show you a close-up of that. This disc has little slots built in that are the size of the kernel of powder that you're going to use. So there's different size discs depending on the powder you're using. And then it picks up one little kernel, drops it down that straw right in there. Now it's doing it very fast, but it is able to stop on a dime. So since switching from the AutoTrickler, which was, doing about, maybe 80% of usable, maybe 20% overthrows, and going to the Ingenuity Precision Trickler, I went to about a 98 or 99% exact amount, as in right on the money. This thing has a tendency to not undercharge too much, and it rarely overthrows because it's only throwing one kernel down at a time, rather than the screw type trickler, which again can drop more than one piece of powder at a time and therefore go over accidentally. Because this is throwing a one at a time, it's very precise. My friend Mike Colley told me one of the tricks when he's working with the AutoTrickler, if I want 30 grains of varget, I put in 30.01. Therefore, it's very difficult for it to stop 2/100ths short like it normally might, 29.98, because that's 3/100ths short. So it tries to go one more than that. So it drops one more kernel, which always puts it at 30.00. It can sometimes go to 30.02, but most of the time it stops right on 30.0. It's actually amazing how consistent it is. It is awfully fast as well. I can probably throw a charge on this in approximately 7 seconds. And a lot of that depends on how I set the throw up, how close I try to make it. If you make it too close, it actually can make it a little slower. This thing likes to get up to speed a little bit. If I'm about a half a grain short with my throw, this thing will nail it on the money just about every time. I think this is an incredible trickler. I know it's not the only system that uses these discs and that hold the little slots like this, but it's an amazing system, and it is, for the foreseeable future, the system that I am going to use. So I'm going to hook it back up and show you not only how I charge, but what I do with the rounds after I charge. And that includes seating, marking the brass, checking my bullet length, and making sure that my rounds are as good as they can be for my next match. So you'll see all that in the next video, and I look forward to seeing you there.